Well, and welcome everybody. We're talking about National Letter of Intent and National Signing Day. So the NLI and signing days. We'll walk through some things here, but be ready to take some notes. We're going to walk through some important information. Quick intro to who I am. I am your host this evening. My name is Britta Marmon. I am a senior women's soccer recruiting coach here at NCSA. I played college soccer. I coached college soccer. And I've been working here at NCSA for about 4 years. So have worked with a lot of athletes. I've gone through the NLI process myself. I've gone through it with, prospects and recruits, and certainly guided a lot of kids through it here. So we're going to talk about the NLI signing day. We're going to kind of explain that, talk through what that looks like and what that means. Recruiting timelines, dates for your sport, next steps for the group, and then question and answers. Okay, signing day, the NLI. This is sort of one of the most exciting aspects of your recruiting process. Okay, receiving an offer. Maybe that is in verbal form to start out. You can't sign an NLI, until your sport date. The National Letter of Intent is a binding agreement between your institution, the student athlete, and your institution. Okay, so the college that you've committed to. Okay, and that's going to obviously start verbally, most likely, and then end with the NLI. This is a binding agreement that you agree to attend for at least 1 year once it's signed, okay? The NLI will sort of line up your athletic scholarship as well as your academic aid for that 1 year. It's a voluntary program that D1 and D2 schools use, okay? Over 600 schools use this. D3, junior colleges, and NAI universities do not participate in the NLI program, okay? So think of this as a contract between your school that you've committed to and yourself, okay? Like I said, it's got to include your athletic scholarship breakdown or your academic aid agreement from the school itself. And it should be sort of explain what that is, okay? You must be enrolling in a 4-year D1 or D2 for the first time, or transferring to a 4-year institution from a 2-year college to be eligible to sign an NLI, okay? So I'll say that again. In order to be eligible to sign an NLI, you have to be enrolling in a 4-year institution, D1 or D2 for the first time, or you're transferring from a 2-year school into that 4-year institution, okay? All right. Letters of intent commitments, all right? Like we said, it's used by D1 and D2. It's binding. Okay, this is contractual. It's you go from maybe a verbal offer, which is contractual in many ways, but it's not a document. It's not a legal contract. Okay, you agree to attend the school for 1 academic year in exchange for athletic scholarship. All D1 and D2 programs accept this, except for service academies and the Ivy League. Okay. There's no binding signing with junior colleges, NAIs, or D3s. D3s do not offer athletic scholarships, so there's not an NLI process there. Now, if you're signing with a D3 school, you can sign a celebratory form, that celebrates that signing day, your commitment to that school. You'll see, obviously a lot of people post their signing days on social media. You can do that if you go to a D3 NAI or a junior college, okay? NAI schools offer a letter of intent, but it's not binding, okay? So you can sign something for an NAI school, but it's not binding, okay? You also can dual sign with a JUCO, junior college, and any 4-year school with no penalty, okay? All right. So signing on the dotted line of a national letter of intent, it means a couple of things. It means you're committed to that school for 1 year, okay? You don't have to sign the NLI after the first year. Okay, this is your first year contract. The school is required to let you know if your scholarship is going to be renewed after that first year. Okay. Now the university is promising to provide your athletic scholarship for that full year, right? That 1 year of your NLI. The NLI and the financial aid package are two different documents, two separate documents. Okay, you're going to need to sign both. Only D1 programs are permitted to offer multi-year athletic aid in an NLI. Okay, so most schools are going to offer you a 1 year NLI. D2s, D1s, some D1 programs can offer you a multi-year NLI contract. When you sign your national letter of intent, your recruiting is essentially over. Okay, there's no other schools that you can have contact with. They cannot recruit you. You are moving on to the next chapter once you sign that letter. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about what to consider, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that occur before you get to this point, making a decision, signing your letter of intent, making a commitment. What kind of education and college experience are you going to receive at this school? What kind of role will you have on the team? Okay, are you going to be a starter? Are you going to be a bench player for a couple of years? Some schools will tell you if they think you're going to be a starter. Some will tell you that, hey, we see you sitting for a couple of years before really competing for a spot. Some will say, we think you could compete for a spot, but we have to see it when you get here. You need to think about that. Do you have a preference on whether or not you sit or if you play? What scholarship amount have you been offered? Okay, what's the scholarship? How does that work for your family? How does that work for you? Is that different in comparison to other schools that may have offered you? How much of your tuition and expenses will be covered by the scholarship? Okay, what's going to be your out-of-pocket after all of this is said and done? And then, listen, you've got to think about if this is a school that you could be at if your sport was not involved. If you weren't playing your sport, could you spend 4-5 years at this college, at this school? Got to think about it. We're all athletes. Our goal is to play our sport in college, but I used to say this to every recruit that came on campus. Could you see yourself here if soccer was taken away? If you weren't playing? Really important to ask yourself that. Okay. Now, National Letter of Intent release rules. Okay. If your student athlete or you as the student athlete changes your mind, if they change their mind, you must ask to be released by the program. Okay. You have to do this online through a process on the NLI website. You're not guaranteed this release. And if you're not granted a release, you will lose 1 year of eligibility if you decide to leave. Okay. So common reason why student athletes back out of a NLI commitment would be a coach change. That's very common. You can appeal this process through the NLI committee, but it is a legal document. So you have to go through the process of asking for a release. If you don't get the release, you've got to go through an appeal process. If that doesn't pan out, you could lose a year of eligibility if you decide not to attend college and fulfill that commitment. Okay. So when does an NLI become null and void? Pretty simple. If you're not admitted to the institution, so you don't get in academically, you're not admitted through admissions. If you fail to meet eligibility requirements to receive athletic aid. Okay, that's going to go through the eligibility center. If the institution decides to cut your sport, okay, those would be the main reasons why an NLI would be voided. Now, this right here, if you can screen grab this or write this down, these are the dates and the signing dates for this upcoming 2024-2025 signing periods. Okay, so you'll see potentially your sport listed on the screen. That initial signing date is when signing starts. You'll see, basketball has an early period, so does football. There's a regular period for basketball as well as football for the mid-year junior college transfer. And then you'll see D1 and D2 football regular period. All other sports, Division 1 and 2, you'll see down at the bottom. Okay, so this is important to know when your NLI dates are. Okay, now if you are in communications with a coach and you have, a commitment, you've made a commitment, your coaching staff is going to be pretty, they're going to communicate with you on when you can expect to be doing this. But, coming up this coming fall, right, in November, for example, for women's soccer, the signing period starts, in November. Okay, that's when kids are signing their NLIs for the 2025 class. They can still sign NLIs through August, but it's going to start in November. Okay, so important to know your dates based on your sport. I'll try to include that in my follow-up just so you have it. But some resources would be easily to be found online or at the NLI website. Yes, I will go back to that slide. I will try to share the slide. I'm not totally sure if I will have that. If not, I'll just type it out into my follow-up email so that you have it. Okay, so what to be doing now, right? What if you're not in a position where you have a commitment or you've made a verbal commitment or you've been made an offer? We've got to maximize time and we've got to start the process by being proactive. Okay, typically about 80% of recruits make their decision after November of the senior year. So you have to have some things in place. This doesn't just happen. Okay, coaches aren't going to just hand you a commitment or an offer and then an NLI without knowing who you are, seeing you perform your sport or your skill set, having communications with you, etc. So keep your NCSA profile updated. New video, new metrics, new numbers, verified metrics and key stats. That's a way for coaches to evaluate you, okay? Make sure for our juniors and seniors, you've got transcripts, test scores, GPA, really good idea of what your academics look like. And listen, show the college coaches your best, okay? So whether it's video or key stats, these should be done at the highest level possible. This is somewhere where you're going to spend 4 years and these coaches are committing to for that time frame as well. Don't wait. Okay. Don't wait for coaches to come to you. Be proactive, be direct in your communication. Make sure you're looking at the right schools. Is it the right academic fit? Like, can you be successful there academically? Because if you can't be successful academically, you're not going to be able to play your sport. Right? There's eligibility rules from an academic standpoint. So it's really important that you're looking at the best fits for academics. Research schools. Know why you're interested. Know what they have to offer. Look at their rosters. Look at their level of play. Is it realistic? Take admission tours. Do these virtually if they're farther away. Take self-guided tours when you get on campuses. We want to take visits. Okay, we want to see games, right? We want to watch the team that we're looking at or the program compete. Check out 70% matches and above, okay? Really focus a lot of your energy on schools that you're matching well with. And then check out roster openings, okay? Roster openings are specific to your position in your grad year. They are college coaches that are listing those for players at your position in your grad year. So it can be a tremendous way to connect with college coaches, okay? Mix up the communication. Recruiting questionnaires, maybe check out social media, Instagram, Twitter, emails, right? Calls, text messages if you have direct contact information. You have to also be realistic about the lack of response. If coaches are not responding 3, 4, 5 times, you need to move on, okay? You can still keep that school as maybe a top school for you. It's somewhere maybe you're going to apply no matter what. Or maybe, if they came back and said, hey, we're really looking, we need, a player like you. Yeah, of course you're going to consider it. But you've got to be putting energy into schools that are putting energy back into you. Okay. And you'll know what that looks like. Okay. Coaches should be responding, right? If they're interested, they'll respond. Now, it's important to be persistent and consistent about outreach. But if they've seen you play, if you've talked to them at a camp, if you know that they've seen you, your film, and they're still not responding, you need to move on. Look at other schools. Make sure you're putting energy into schools that are putting energy back into you. Okay. Some questions that we typically get here, from recruits as coaches are listed here. So I'll kind of answer these for you just as I would any of the student athletes that I work with. So what are the best ways to get responses from coaches? Now, this will be determined by your grad year and the timeline for your sport. And if the coaches in your sport at these different schools are permitted to talk to you. Okay, so that's something we're not going to cover here tonight, but something you can readily, get access to. I always tell my student athletes to provide information on who they are, why they're interested specifically, reference ways that they can be evaluated, film, events, games, ID camps, and ask questions. Okay, if you don't ask coaches questions, they are not going to answer the questions that you have, okay? So if you have questions about what they're looking for positionally in your grad year, or if they have feedback on your film, or you just went to an ID clinic, you've got to ask for feedback. Don't assume that they're just going to give it to you because you sent them an email or you went there, okay? So make sure you're asking questions. Now, try to avoid sending emails to coaches every day or even every week, okay? If you're not getting responses, also keep in mind that we don't want it to become noise for them, okay? We want it to be consistent, but we also want it to be efficient. So send an email introducing yourself, referencing your profile, your film. If you don't get a response, follow up in 10 days. Reference that email, ask some questions, maybe chime in about their season or their game they just played. And then maybe after that, we're sort of the cadence is every 10 days to check in after that. Camps or showcases. Should I be attending those? Showcases, yes. With your team, okay, if your team is going to showcases and there are college coaches attending, you need to be letting those coaches know, okay, that you're going to be there. Send them your schedule, okay? Write it out in the email. Don't send them a link to your schedule. Let them know where, when, how they can see you play. Camps. There's a million camps out there. I'm not as well versed with camps for other sports, but I can probably bet that it's pretty similar in all sports. There are camps kind of all year round. And I'm speaking more kind of specifically to our juniors and seniors, make sure that those coaches at camps that you're attending know who you are and have told you, if at all possible, that they are looking for players in your grad year, in your sport, in your position, etc. We really want to be maximizing opportunity. And if there's not an opportunity, it doesn't matter how good we are, or what we showcase. If they're not looking, it's not going to be a fit. Okay, so make sure that at camps, you ask those questions prior to committing to them. But yes, camps and showcases are a tremendous way to be evaluated. What does real interest from a coach look and sound like? You will notice the difference, okay? Feedback, okay? Responses. That's kind of where it starts. But coaches, if they are interested in you, for their program, for their school, for their team, they will let you know, okay? They will be responsive to your emails. They will, connect with you. They'll ask for you to get on the phone when it's permitted. They'll want to bring you in on visits. They'll want to get you in, in front of their team. They'll want to, show you the school and the campus and their game day. It may not be communication every day, but it'll be easy to know that there's some interest there because they will tell you, okay? Now, leading into that, sometimes communication can be as simple as, hey, thank you so much for your email. We appreciate your interest in our program and in our school. Please fill out our recruiting questionnaire and continue to send us updates on how we can see you play in person. We will need to see you play in person in order to get a better sense of where you fit in. Perfect. That's great. That's next steps. We want to try to get next steps from coaches, okay? Now, if you're asking coaches for feedback, like we said, you're reaching out, they've seen you play and you're getting no response, that can sometimes be a lack of interest. If I have had some personal communication, what are good questions to ask to find out where I stand? How often should I connect? So if you've had personal communication, maybe, a coach reached out to you via email, they wanted to set up a phone call, okay? You get on the phone call and you have a great conversation. You get to know the program, you get to know the coach, they get to know you, they ask you some questions, you ask them some questions. It's very introductory in nature, but it goes really well. At the end of that conversation, if at all possible, when you've got them on the phone, mention, hey, I've had such a great, time getting to know more about the school and your program. Thank you so much for your time. I'm really looking forward to speaking again and just connecting in the future. Is there anything that I can do, to stay connected throughout the season, right? Is there anything that you need from me moving forward? Don't be afraid to ask for next steps. Okay, again, coaches may not give you next steps if you don't ask. Now, to be fair, a lot of coaches will be very specific about what they need. Hey, thank you so much. This was great. We'd love to see you play, when your season picks up, make sure you send us your schedules. Or, hey, we'd love to have you on campus. This fall, we'd love for you to come in and watch a game. Okay, if you don't know the specifics of that, or maybe you get invited to come on campus, but you haven't heard anything, email back. Hey, coach, hope all is going well. Looks like preseason is underway. Just wanted to reconnect on a visit this fall. I'm really interested in that. Are there any weekends that work better for you than not? Right? Keep them accountable. They are very busy. Coaches, they've got a lot going on. If they give you specific information on what those next steps are, but maybe the follow through isn't great, don't be afraid to ask them questions or follow up with them. Okay. In terms of how often you should connect, this is going to be varied, okay, based on, where they are in their competitive season, where you are in your competitive season. What I tell my student athletes, you should be checking in with updates. You should be checking in with things that give them information. So new film on the profile, maybe, they wanted to know, they asked you to, send them your SAT scores. So you're going to send them your test scores, showcase event information, schedules to see you play. Hey, coach, I'm going to be on campus in a couple of weeks just to take a tour. Is there any way we can check in while we're there? things that sort of can engage them, not just, hey, coach, hope all is well. Just wanted to say hello and see how things were going, right? We don't want it to be like the same email over and over again. So really think about how you can check in, but also check in with tangible items, updates, video, information that they can sort of use, okay? So that could be every couple of weeks. That could be once a month. That could be once a quarter. It will depend on where you are in the process, where they are in the process. So utilize your recruiting coaches here to help you with that timeline specifically based on your sport. They can really help you identify like the best things to be doing, when to be doing those, how to check in, what to be sending. So definitely if you have a recruiting coach, lean on them to help you with that with your sport specifically. Okay, we are hitting right about the 30-minute mark. So, and I'll take some questions as they come into the chat box here. Okay, let's try to keep questions as close to on topic as we can. I want to make sure we're conscious of everybody's time and the information that we shared. Okay, when people talk about being committed, have they already signed their NLI? It really depends on timing, okay? So for women's soccer, for example, our 2025 class, many of our 2025s have made decisions. They've made a verbal commitment. So when they say, I'm committed to play soccer at XYZ, they're committed, but they have not signed their NLI yet, okay? Because they won't sign until November. So it really depends on the timing. If it's after November, then yes, they've probably signed an NLI. Also keep in mind, you can be committed to a college and not sign an NLI. So you can be committed to a D1 or a D2 school and not sign an NLI because there's no athletic aid or academic aid, okay? So the NLI aid comes with athletic scholarship. That's something that you will be signing the NLI to sort of commit to, okay? Yeah, so college soccer for D1, D2, signing period is in November. So if somebody says right in their 2025 grad and they say, I'm committed to a school, they haven't signed their NLI yet. In terms of the November through August NLI, what is the pressure upon student athletes to sign earlier than later? It's not really a pressure. It's just, hey, I've made my decision. I've made a commitment. I'm signing now because I know that this is where I'm going. I've made this decision. It's mutually, I've been offered this. I've been offered, a roster spot and athletic aid, and I don't feel the need to wait. Now, if you don't have offers, then you don't sign, in November. So you have the freedom to sign later. But the pressure is not necessarily, the time frame is not there to put pressure on student athletes. It's just the signing period for your sport specifically. Let's see. What should update emails contain? Kind of what we talked about. So updates on your video, right? Or key stats, new metrics, new times, new verified, metrics or key stats, new video, updates on showcases, events, clinics that you're attending, asking questions specific to something you talked about with a coach. SAT scores, ACT scores that are important for the admissions piece for a school. So if a school says, hey, we really like your profile, we've seen you play, we really like the way that you perform and you're what we're looking for athletically, but in order for you to be admitted here and to be a fit for our school, we need, a 30 on your ACT, right? And you have a 28, right? So you go back, you take the ACT, an update would be, hey, coach, I hit a 30 on my ACT. Would you like me to send it over, right? So things that coaches either ask for, things that you can provide for them to evaluate you again or more, information on how they can see you play, information on, if you're going to be on campus to take a tour, etc. When is signing day for D3 football? So let's go back here. So this is obviously D1 and D2. D3 signing periods, for the most part, are going to happen after you've been admitted. Okay. Um, the D3 process is a little bit different because a lot of it is sort of predicated by the admissions piece. Some more so than others. There's really high academic D3s. There's D3s that are, sort of mid-range academics. Once you gain admissions, you can sign a sort of like a congratulatory letter from the school, from the athletic department, but you have to gain admissions first. Now, that is the way it is in soccer. I would think it's that way in football. But again, I'm not a football coach. You might be able to sign something like on National Signing Day, like just, something that you've created just to sort of have like a photo op with your, your school flag and whatnot. But to my knowledge, you're not going to sign anything for the athletic department until after you've been admitted to that D3 school. All right, everybody. I don't see any other questions coming in. I will get you. Oh, here we go. How much can a D1 coach affect the school's choice for admissions? Good question. So some much more heavily than others. For some schools, a lot of the really high academic schools, take the Ivy League, maybe some of the Patriot League schools, coaches may not have any say. There's not much that they can sort of say to admissions that's going to change anything. Now, there are definitely schools that can say, listen, this student athlete is going to help our team. They're going to come in and be a role player for us. They're gonna add to our campus community. And there may be some academic metrics that are a little bit off to, from the admission like standards. So then they can maybe go in and say, all right, these are the things that the student athlete is doing with extracurriculars. There's been massive improvement over the course of 2 years with grades. Test scores are really high. So there are definitely schools that have some pull and leeway with admissions. But there are some that just don't. And it's hard to know, who that is. Coaches can communicate that to you. Some won't. So I think more than anything, it's twofold. If you can have some help from a coach to get into the college where you feel like it's the best fit for you for academics and your sport, great. But also know that just because they can help you doesn't mean that that's going to be the best fit for you academically. You want to set yourself up for success at these schools, right, academically, because that is a far larger part of your process in college than your sport. So answer it sort of plainly, yes, some coaches at the D1 level can sort of affect the admissions process, but some will not have that ability. That kind of goes for all division levels, to be fair. All right, everybody, I hope this has been helpful. Appreciate your time this evening. Enjoy the rest of your night and have a great rest of your week. Take care.